Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we've got this Toro Titan MX5400. It's got the Kohler Confidant 23 horsepower engine on it. This thing bogs down under a load real bad, it runs rough, and overall it sounds very weak. We're going to go through the full diagnostics and repair process on this, whether you have the Confidant 23 or any other Kohler V-twin, whether it's on a Titan or any other zero-turn or riding mower. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons as we go along if you enjoy the content. We'll fire this up. I'll show you how it sounds. The first thing with lack of power we want to check is the fuel supply, the fuel quality, and the actual flow of the fuel coming from the system. With this, it's not a fuel related issue, and you can test that very easily by actually just slightly choking it. Pull that choke just a hair, and if it starts running better, if it smooths out or you can find a sweet spot, then you know the issue is fuel or air mix related, which means either the air filter's plugged up, check your air filter, or there's an issue with the fuel quality or flow. Again, that's not the case here, but I'm going to show you how to test that. What we like to do, just pull off the fuel line, let what's left in there drain out so it doesn't get on that hot muffler. We're going to just hook up a line here, and we're going to turn it over and run it for a second and see what the fuel flow is, and then see if there's any separation or cloudiness to it in the clear container. I would say the flow is probably a little bit slow. You want that to actually just be kind of shooting out of there, but it's fast enough to keep this running without issue. And there is no cloudiness to it. Everything's nice and clear, and there's no separation. If you see a layer anywhere or this is all cloudy, you know that fuel quality is a problem. It may not be exactly what's causing your issue, but it will be a problem down the road. Here we know that's good. Again, that choke method is very easy to try. If you're not getting any fuel at all, or it's just dribbling out of here, you want to check the fuel line and the fuel filter going back. This is actually a new fuel filter, and one of the other guys has already checked all that out. We do know that the fuel quality and supply is good. So is the air cleaner. If you get good fuel supply and the fuel quality is good, and it runs better with the choke pulled slightly, you're going to want to go towards a carburetor issue at this point. Pull that carburetor off, see if you got blocked jets, plugged up jets. There's plenty of videos out there on doing that, but that's the direction you'll go now. Since ours doesn't run better with a little choke applied, and we know all the fuel supply and quality is good, we're going to check both cylinders and make sure that they're firing independently. Here we have a cylinder on the right and a cylinder on the left, which means that if one of those isn't running, say the ignition coil's bad, or one of the valves is sticking, or push rods are bent, or something like that, we could just be running on half power, which would still be 12.5 horsepower, enough to run it, enough to engage the blades and everything, but not enough to give it good power, especially if it's under a load. There's a few different ways to test this. Some people like to just feel the down tubes of the exhaust on each side and see if it's hot up by the engine. If one side's cool and one side's hot, you know that the side that's cool is not actually firing. Other people like to spray fluid on either down tube. Same result. If one fizzles and the other one doesn't, you know that one side is not firing. I like to just pull a spark plug wire off. I like to plug it into a spark plug. You can use the same plug that's in it. That's going to test the spark plug at the same time. I'm not going to bother pulling that out. But then you would just look between the inside and the outside probe and see if you're getting a spark when it's turning over. I'm going to hold it. You want to insulate yourself that way you don't get shocked. It doesn't feel too good. And let's see if we're getting spark on this side. We are. We're getting very good spark. And it fired up for a second and then it died right back out. I wonder... It should run on just one cylinder with one spark plug unplugged. And it is running on that other side, but it's cutting out. So that's telling us that we likely have an issue with something on that side, either a bad spark plug, a bad ignition coil or intermittent ignition coil, or something to do with one of the valves. I like to test spark first. This spark was showing very good and a good quality. That's what you want to look for. It should be able to bridge that gap pretty easily. And we've got a spark plug checker. We use these a lot as opposed to that, and this should tell us exactly the health of the cylinder. It's flashing okay. It's telling us that spark is good. And once we plug that spark plug back in and we're running off this cylinder too, it seems to stay running fine. Let's check out that other side and see exactly what's going on. Let's do the same tests over here. See what the spark checker says first. Said okay, and then it quickly went to high. Normally means bad spark plug, fouled spark plug, something to that effect. Could also mean a bad ignition coil. It does look like these spark plugs were replaced. And Scott took a look at it. Let's test the spark here to the outside. It's going to be hard for me to see this. Probably have to turn off the camera real quick and review it. Should be able to do it, I think. There is spark, but it's showing very, very faint on that plug. I'm going to use I usually try to stay away from this since most of you aren't going to have one at home. We have an Opama PET4000. I actually just recently purchased it. But you can completely gap the spark plug, and you actually want to gap it to 6 millimeters normally, which is from here way over to there, to tell you if you're getting a good spark, and it's jumping that full gap. If it doesn't jump that gap, you know that it's actually bad, that the coil is bad. You do not have to plug this into the spark plug. You just plug it into the wire, and then you hook it back to ground somewhere, anywhere that grounds on the engine. Now let's see exactly what happens. Got it to jump there. We get absolutely nothing out of this side. There's no spark whatsoever. I got spark for the very first second there. I'm going to turn this into about 4 millimeters and see if we get spark there. It is actually jumping at about 4 millimeters. It's pretty well jumping that gap every time. But 6 is where we're testing at. That's going to tell you if it's good or not. And it is not making that jump, which means that this ignition coil is weak. It's intermittently working, or it's not producing enough spark to fire every time. If we test this with just the other cylinder working, obviously it's going to be working fine. Just to do our due diligence here. But this cylinder is not running, or is intermittently running instead of running all the time. So that's why it will not stay running. If I pull this other plug again and try to fire it up, it stays running for a second. And now it won't do anything at all. That's because we're not getting a good or a consistent spark over here in order to ignite this side. Now, if you were getting good spark on both sides, and it still wouldn't run on one side or the other, you'd want to open the valve train and figure out why that is. Figure out if you have bent push rods or a stuck open valve or something to that effect. If it's only running on one cylinder, though, you know it's not going to be a carburetor issue or anything like that, because the carburetor feeds both cylinders exactly the same. There's a very good lesson here in that we were still showing a spark. It still bridged a pretty good gap, but you really need to look and make sure it's a nice pretty blue and that it is a strong spark in between those electrodes of that spark plug. If you're not getting any spark at all, go ahead and switch out the plug, check it again. But it should be real strong. If it's not, chances are it's your ignition coil, or Mr. Mouse has gotten in there and chewed up some of your wiring where it's intermittently sparking back to ground. That happens occasionally too. We'll pull off the top, see if it is something like that where it's bad wiring to the kill wire, but likely it's not. Likely that ignition coil is bad. To get into the coil, we have a couple 5/16 bolts on each side. You actually don't have to take all these all the way out. There are notches in them. For me, it's easier to take them all the way out. They are going to be the same size, all 6 of them. Still got the plug unplugged. Guess I can reinstall it. And you don't have to take any of this cowling off like I did on either side. It just makes it a little easier for me to show everything. I'm going to leave that one on since it's kind of more difficult to get started by hand when we put everything back together. But I am going to take the two 10mm out of the fuel pump. These are a different size. It's a plastic screw. And I'm not saying the screw itself is plastic, but it's a 10mm head and it's got coarse threads to go into the plastic. Now we've got 2 on the back, same size screws. You got to take the dipstick out so it's not in the way. And then straight up and off, the whole shroud comes. We're at the ignition coil. You can view it very easily. If you inspect the wires and see any chewing or nicking or anything, they may need replaced or repaired. If we remove the kill wire and we repeat those same tests and it doesn't improve, then we know the issue is going to be the ignition coil. I'm going to assume it is in this case. I almost never find an issue without there being wiring chewed or a bunch of nicks in the wire. So I think we have the bad coil here. Normally when we replace one, we replace both. So you're going to want to do that. If you have a bad ignition coil, go ahead and replace both of them at the same time. This one, I'm going to use an 8mm to remove, and then it's going to come straight off. We can unplug it long enough. We'll just take those 2 bolts out. They're both the same size. Ignition coil comes straight off. We do see, actually looking at it, we've got some lamination separating. And there's a piece that looks kind of weird right there. I'm not sure exactly what the deal is with that. But it's definitely not normal for laminations to be separated, and whatever that piece is, almost looks like it's hitting. I don't see any marks on the magnet itself though. There are tests you can do with an ohm meter or multimeter to test the coil itself. I don't trust those tests. They give me false readings a lot. We can clean up the magnet just for the heck of it. Honestly, it's not going to matter a whole lot. But the gapping, to get a nice close gap, does make it a little bit better, especially if you got real thick rust on it. Pretty good, got a little left. Okay. And we can also clean up the mounts where our new coil is going to be installed. You want that to be a good ground for that coil. Okay. I like to use some anti-seize. We use Seymour heavy duty. We'll just put a little down in there. Kind of makes a mess all over the place. Get our new Kohler ignition coil out of the box. You don't want to use an aftermarket coil on this. You want to go with an OEM, original equipment, coil. We use lots of aftermarket stuff, but never coils. They have not came the same amount of distance as what all the other aftermarket stuff has come. If you use them, you'll likely have issues, and you won't know exactly where to go since it's a brand new ignition coil. Some people like to rotate the magnet over here first and then install everything. It is a little easier sometimes. I'm going to just go ahead and flip it around. And you're basically gapping it in between the magnet and the outsides. There we go. You want it all the way up against with a card in between it, or you want to go to 10 thousandths if you've got a feeler gauge. Tighten it down. Now we can remove the card. Just rotate it around, and then you want to check and make sure that you're actually not hitting on either side as this rotates. Everything should be free, and if you actually shine light down below, you should be able to see straight down through when you do that. We'll plug in the kill wire again next, and then the spark plug wire also. Let's actually unplug this plug again. I like to always stick a spark plug in it. Some people have told me over the years that the coil with the spark not breaking down can reduce coil life, so we always like to stay away from that. Let's see if that other side runs independently of this one now. That was pretty cool. Got a nice spray of oil all over the place because I forgot to put my dipstick back in. Took our tester back up, and I flipped these around like they're actually supposed to be. I had them on the opposite sides before, but it really doesn't matter. Spark jumps either direction. Let's see exactly how strong that spark is now. yes, it still sounded the same because we're still not running off of this cylinder since I didn't have that plug hooked up. Let's do it with just the spark plug now, just so we can kind of see the difference that it does make when you've got a good ignition coil. It's a lot stronger. It's almost bluish purple this time, as opposed to last time. It was more of a light yellow, maybe, of a spark, and it wasn't nearly as thick. Let's see the difference in power this thing has. Back to full power. This thing is running great. Blade speed's good. No more bogging, no more running rough or sounding weak. It is perfect and ready to go. Just a simple ignition coil replacement. But when it presents where you do actually see the spark on the plug, if you're doing testing yourself, it's a little bit more difficult to diagnose. So you've got to dive a little bit deeper or use some of those more expensive diagnostic tools. With this, you do always want to replace both of those at the same time. We're going to get that other one replaced before it goes out. But if you relay to the customer that they should replace them and they don't replace one, if it comes back 6 months later, it's not your fault. But always relay that if you are a shop. You want this thing to be 100%. You don't want to have those nuisance callbacks. Hopefully this video has helped you if you had the same or a similar issue, or at least helped you to learn something like put the dipstick back in before you run the machine. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons if you enjoyed the content. Have a great rest of your day.